Welcome to ITF introduction video. Today we are thrilled to present the IdentityIQ testing framework, which aims to simplify the testing process and make it more efficient. In this brief video, we will explain why testing IIQ is so challenging and how can ITF help. As you will soon discover, ITF is not just a testing tool. It is an invaluable asset in developing IIQ customizations and configurations. But let's start by examining why testing IdentityIQ is so time-consuming and non-repeatable. In my opinion, there are several major factors that contribute to this challenge. First, IIQ is highly customizable, which is fantastic, but it also requires the validation of every custom component. Second, there are numerous moving parts involved, such as refresh task, aggregation, rules, requests, approvals, workflows, and many more. Often, to achieve the desired outcome, many of these components must work together in specific order. Finally, the underlying data can be complex and must be synchronized between IIQ and many external target systems. Due to these challenges, manual testing requires a significant amount of time. Test data must be prepared, identities must be put in the desired state, and various tasks must be run. Additionally, constant logging in and outs is necessary to approve tasks on behalf of different individuals. And finally, the results must be manually validated. So how can ITF help? The idea is to automate every step of the testing process. In ITF, every action you perform manually is represented by a command, and all commands necessary to perform single test are put together in ITF test case represented in XML. Let's look at the demonstration. I'm logged into IdentityIQ instance. Let's have a look at identities. I will pick identity Angela Bell. She has some attributes. She doesn't have any entitlements, and she has just only one application called HR Employees. Okay, very good. So in this example, I want to show you the request and approval process that will end with Angela getting a role that includes entitlement in LDAP application. Okay, let's start. Let me log out and log back in as Angela Bell. I will speed up now because we all know what's going to happen. I'll have to log in and log out a bunch of times, approve, check the current status, and finally get to the desired effect. Angela Bell, she now has employee role, including IT role, and employees group. After this manual test, our identity is in a very different state than at the beginning. So not only the test was time consuming, but if I wanted to perform this test again, I would have to manually revert that test identity to original state. So how would this test be performed using ITF? This is the test case, which is equivalent to the test we performed manually. Let me explain a few details about this test case, and then we can run it. First of all, there's of course the test case name and the test identity. Test identity is the XML that represents Angela Bell in the state that we want this identity to be when we start the test case. So that every time you run this test case, this XML will be uploaded to IIQ so that you always start from the same format of the identity. Then we have a series of test commands, which are actions you would normally perform manually. Simulate provision just basically lets us simulate provisioning and not do real provisioning. The clean command will do some additional cleaning. It will delete existing access requests, so there's no open access request before we actually start the test case. Clean the workflow cases for our test identity, and remove all identity entitlements. The next command is run workflow. Run workflow command in this particular case is running an LCM workflow with a provisioning plan to assign an employee role. This is pretty much equivalent to making a request in IdentityIQ. Then we have two approval commands, check approvals. The first command is the manager approval, in which ways the decision is approved. And the second approval is role owner approval, where the decision is also approved. After the second approval, we're expecting that everything is going to be provisioned for the identity. Angela Bell will get a role, and the desired LDAP account with appropriate group would be created. And this is what validate result will validate. We have our expected roles, which is employees, and we have our expected link with groups set to correct value. So what validate result command does, it will actually check if everything is as expected, and if there are any issues, it will throw an exception. In this case, we're hoping it will work correctly. Let's run this test case and have a look at the results. On the right side here, we see the progress of the test case, and the test case is finished. And this is how ITF test case works. You can run it over and over again without any additional work. Now let's run this test case again, but let's stop after every command and check IIQ what is the current status of data in it. There's a command called break, which will basically stop the execution of the test command when ITF reaches that command. So let's see the initial state right after cleaning. I'm gonna run the test case. Test case is finished. Let's go to IIQ. Let's look at the identities. Angela Bell. She doesn't have any entitlements, and she only has HR employees account. And there are no access requests for Angela Bell. Okay, very good. Let's move the break command after the run workflow, which is basically right after we should be seeing a new request for Angela Bell. Let's save it and run again. Command is finished. Let's look at access requests. Let's refresh. Hey, you can see that now Angela Bell has got a request and it's waiting, it's pending the approval from Richard Jackson. And the identity of Angela Bell herself still doesn't have any entitlements and no additional accounts. Perfect. So let's move the break command after the first approval and run it again. Okay, it's finished. Let's look at the access requests. Okay, very good. There's an access request. Let's look at the details. We can see here that manager approval is finished and now it's pending approval by owner. Let's refresh identity. Still no entitlements and no additional accounts as expected. Now let's move the break command after check approvals. Save it, run it again. Let's look at the access request. In this case, access request is completed. Both approvals are in place and everything should be already provisioned. Let's refresh identity and we will see that in fact we have the role assigned, the entitlement is in place, and the LDAP account was provisioned with a group called employees. This is how ITF works. You may say that ITF looks pretty good and it runs fast, but of course, there's additional time to prepare these test cases. And it's true. But the ITF is not only the engine that understands and runs these commands, but there's a lot of uh, helper tools that allow you to create these test cases um, in a very fast way. So um, let's give it a try and create that test case. So let me delete these two files and let's start from scratch. So first of all, I need to create ITF test case. I will go to new and select ITF test case and let's give it a name, my new test case. The IntelliJ plugin prepares a blank test case for us with already a name in it. Now we need the test identity, of course. So we right click here, we select the test identity, and this plugin will read data from IIQ and you can select the identity for the test case. In this case, it will be Angela Bell. Now we want to include links, we want to include manager, but we don't want any roles and role assignments. Okay, and as you can see here, Angela Bell is placed as test identity, and there's XML for the content of this identity. Let's double check it. HR employees, and we can see here that there's of course the LDAP account, which was left over from a previous test case. So we don't want that, so we want to delete it. So we start from scratch. Okay, let's save it. And now let's run the test case and look at the result. So far, it's just the data. Now we want to include the clean command, and we want to delete the workflow cases, delete access request, and delete identity entitlements. True. Let's save it and run again. Okay, let's log back in. Identity warehouse, Angela Bell, and she is in a correct format now. Now we want to, mm, in this test case, we want to perform identity request. So to make things easy, let's actually make a real identity request. I will log out and log back in as Angela Bell. I'm sorry, we need to provide a password. Let's save it and run the test case again. Now let's log back in as Angela Bell. Oh, she has a correct password. And let's make a request. Let's select the desired role and submit the request. Now the request is submitted and we have access request. So what we can do in ITF test case, the next command that we'll need is run workflow, but we don't have to type it in manually. We can insert ITF element, which is access request, and this will connect to IIQ and let us select the correct access request that was just made in the GUI so that it exactly matches what IIQ does. There you go, access request for the employee role. Let's run it again. Okay, very good. Let's refresh access requests. We can see here that it's waiting for approval. So again, using a helper here, we will insert element called approval, and we can select it. It connects to IIQ, selects all the approval. You have to just pick it from the dropdown, select Angel Bell, and we have check approvals command. All we have to do is provide the decision. In this case, it will be approve. Let's run this again. The approval was successful, and now it's pending another approval. So we go here as before. We insert element, select the approval, select the correct approval, insert that, provide the decision, save it, and run the whole thing again. Okay, let's log back in as SPAdmin and look at the identity, Angela Bell. Now she has correct roles and correct application. But we want to make sure that our test case will verify that. So again, we insert an element called identity validation. We validated it manually. Now we just want to put it in the test case. And so the Angela Bell identity is pre-selected. We don't want to include identity attributes. We want to include roles. We want to include links, and we can skip the role assignments and role detections for now. Okay, now as you can see here, we have validate results commands in place, but there's an extra link that we don't want, so we will just delete the validation of that because nothing changes here, and we are not interested in validating manager. So all we have is expected roles and expected links, including groups. Let's save it and run it. Yeah, correct. We have just finished creating the same test case that I was demonstrating. You have seen, of course, only the small portion of full ITF capabilities, but you should have a pretty good idea of how it works. What you're getting with ITF is full support of automation of all manual tasks, ability to create complex test cases to validate your IAQ customizations, and tooling to help you create those test cases faster. By automating the testing process, ITF saves valuable time and makes testing repeatable. This means you can focus on developing your IAQ customizations and configurations without worrying about time-consuming testing process. Thank you very much for watching. For more details, please visit us at our website or contact us by email. Thank you.